we view ourselves as sort of part of the tapestry of the Bay Area scene, really, or the Bay Area Bitcoin scene. There was already a really strong historic set of meetups that existed, both BitDevs, LitDevs, etc. That we didn't want to disrupt. We wanted to be a part of that. So we post all of our public events on those existing channels that have existed before Presidio Bitcoin, just because we want to be part of that community. We want to support that community and not be anything else but other than being a part of it.
Ever wonder what it takes to build a thriving Bitcoin community in the heart of Silicon Valley? In this episode, we dive into Presidio Bitcoin with founders Haley and Alex. We uncover their mission, the vibrant co-working space in San Francisco, and how they're bridging Bitcoin with investors and builders to spark innovation. We hope you enjoy, and as a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes. If you enjoy our work, please remember to share, comment, or subscribe to our channel, as this all helps us grow. Lynne and I are partners at Bairstow Advisors, where we use our network of venture capital partners and startup founders to connect investors with unique opportunities within the Bitcoin innovation space. Alongside this, we help startup founders with their growth and fundraising. Visit our website's advisory section to learn more. Welcome to Build with Bitcoin. I'm co-host Israel Muñoz, joined with co-host Lynne Bairstow. Today we welcome the Presidio Bitcoin team. Haley and Alex, welcome. Unfortunately, Steve couldn't join us, but we're happy to have you both on.
Yeah, really excited to be here.
Thank you.
So Presidio Bitcoin, for the listeners, to get some context in case some might not know exactly what you guys are up to, is a fantastic co-working and event space in the San Francisco and Silicon Valley area. And before we get into Presidio Bitcoin, some of your mission, what you guys are doing over there, we'd love to first get to know a little bit about the Presidio Bitcoin team. So maybe we can start there.
Yeah, you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. So my full-time day job is I work on the Spiral team, which is a Bitcoin open source initiative that's part of Block Inc. I do marketing. I've been on Spiral for about 4 years. And about a year ago, this idea of Presidio Bitcoin came about from a group of Bay Area Bitcoiners who wanted to get together and were really craving some sort of Bitcoin hub. And ideas started flowing. And then all of a sudden we kind of came up with this idea to start this Bitcoin co-working event space, which is now Presidio Bitcoin. So me and Steve Lee, who is also on the Spiral team, we both work out of Presidio Bitcoin now, but we really helped start the initiative. So we kind of helped build the space from the beginning. So we came up kind of like with the general idea. Mark Casey, who is one of the funders, found this beautiful location in the Presidio. I helped kind of build it from the beginning, getting all the desks, the layout, furniture, stuff like that. And then we found Alex as the lead back in November last year. So now I just sit back as a board member for Presidio Bitcoin and get to go back to my normal day job at Spiral and work out of here, but also help with the events. So I helped moderate one of the meetups that we have here. So still very much involved, but Alex is the one who kind of leads the charge with the running the business now.
Yeah, there's no sitting back and relaxing at all if you're involved here. I touched on a lot there, Haley. That's exactly right. I have the distinct privilege of leading Presidio Bitcoin, and basically what that means is I do everything. Unloading the dishwasher, setting up great events, dealing with whatever it might be to run the business, getting new members, etc. We have fortunately an incredible folks that are members here, meaning that they really help out, whether it's putting on events, helping keep the space operating, whatever it might be. It's really been a fantastic sort of 7 months since I've been here. We officially launched in March of this year. But yeah, I came from kind of normal world. I was a consultant for a long time, went to business school, and then kind of got in the crypto Web3 space in 2021, and eventually just kind of went closer and closer to the nucleus, which is Bitcoin, in sort of a circling way. But yeah, eventually thought this was just a fantastic and really cool opportunity to take a place like Presidio Bitcoin from 0 to 1, right? This was a blank canvas. It was an idea, and obviously we had two fantastic donors that made it all possible. But it was just so fun to be able to paint with a brush and see what it's become today. in such short amount of time, honestly. But really the plans that we have for the future and where it's going to be and what it can become.
And also, who is on the screen that I forgot to introduce is Itty Bitty. He is part of the Here Comes Bitcoin initiative, which is one of the things that I work on as part of Spiral. So he's also joining the interview with us. If
and we have
watching
the full size one in a conference room in Presidio Bitcoin, which is like something you can go inside of it, right?
Well,
not just anyone, but that's how big it is. You
can go take a picture with it. There is a human that normally goes inside of it, but yes, we do have the full puppet at Presidio Bitcoin, and then Itty Bitty, who is his miniature, is joining us on the podcast today.
I can't wait to dive into a little bit more about Presidio and what you offer, but I want to talk about the name Presidio Bitcoin. If you're at all in the Bay Area, you know exactly what it is. But I'm based in Mexico City, and we have a big LATAM following of who we work with. And when the name came out, they're like, Presidio, because it means penitentiary or fortress in Spanish. And so there was a lot of confusion about it. But can you explain exactly what the Presidio is and just talk a little bit about the name?
Yeah, in San Francisco, the Presidio, and we've heard that feedback too when we came up with the name, but it's a national park. Like we are technically in the United States federal land park service, but it used to be an old military base. The oldest building in San Francisco is just up the road from us, and it was the original sort of military installation. So where we're located is, you can see the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a very strategic location to the whole San Francisco Bay Area. But that's the name, right? It's sort of this historic blending of old military ground mixed with the Spanish roots that California ultimately has. And that's what this whole area is called, right? So we kind of weren't very creative with the name because we kind of just took the name Presidio and added Bitcoin to it. But our branding was extremely fun to go about, kind of creating the brand, around Presidio Bitcoin. Because as mentioned, this was an old military base. I think in 1994 it was decommissioned. Now, as you mentioned, it's like the Walt Disney Museum is here. There's a bunch of restaurants. People live here. People obviously work here. There's office space. It's a wonderful park and place to hike. So we really had this really fun experience of like, okay, what does this now mean from a branding opportunity of being in a national park in a former military base with sweeping views of the Golden Gate and representing Bitcoin in Silicon Valley, and what does that mean? So it's a very, to your point, right, Lynne, if you know the Presidio in San Francisco, it's very obvious and everything fits and makes a lot of sense. But we do know that the word Presidio may not go well with the nomenclature of a different language.
But it's gorgeous. I mean, it has parks, hiking. I mean, a lot of walking meetings you can take in the trails right behind the Presidio, historic buildings. I mean, it is such a spectacular space, and parking, which in San Francisco is something that's a little bit hard to find. So I loved the location as soon as I heard about it. But maybe that's a good way for you to just talk about exactly what is the space, what do you offer, what are who can come, and just talk a little bit about the community that you're building there.
So this is a Bitcoin-focused co-working and event space. It's not that large. We have 24 workstations with dual monitors. So we have people that are working here daily using it as their workspace. And then the other aspect is the space is it's an event space. So there's many meetups and events that were happening kind of other places, and now they're all happening at Presidio Bitcoin, which, as you mentioned, is really nice because there's parking and we have kind of like a specific curated area on one side of the office that we can easily host events. And then, yes, we also have a recording studio that's part of the space as well, which Alex and I are in. And so we kind of have this almost like media component of Presidio Bitcoin as well, where a couple of us run podcasts. So we have PB&J, Presidio Bitcoin Jam, and then that is Steve Lee, DK, and Max Webster. They do kind of a weekly show about Bitcoin, what's happening, kind of discussing different topics that are interesting. And the goal for that is to appeal to both Bitcoiners and then also folks in Silicon Valley, because that's one of our main goals, is to kind of bridge the gap between the two. And then there's also 21 and 21, which is a podcast I host, and we kind of are bringing guests that stop by. I ask them questions. It's 21 minutes long. We try to get through 21 questions. The point of that is to kind of show all the cool people that are visiting the space because we get tons of visitors, and then also to give those people a platform to talk about what they're doing. So that's kind of, but really we're a hub for Bitcoiners, and we get visitors from out of town, and then people can work out of the space and have a full-time membership.
You guys do quite a bit, Haley and Alex, and you mentioned something just now, Haley, that I want to get a little more of both your thoughts on. You mentioned that one of the goals, or perhaps the main goal, that's something I'll let you guys expand on, is really creating this hub for Bitcoin in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley, of course, being such an important epicenter of tech and past 2, 3, 4 decades of really the global economy. And then now you have this Bitcoin movement. And what we saw was Austin, Nashville, some other cities start to create this hub, right? And I think before the efforts that you're doing at Presidio, a lot of us probably did wonder what's going on over there in San Francisco. Where did Silicon Valley stand prior to Presidio? I mean, was it a little more lost in the Web3 and general crypto area? Where was it and where is it now with what Presidio is doing?
Well, there definitely have always been Bitcoiners in San Francisco and in the Bay Area. But yes, before Presidio Bitcoin, there wasn't as much of a hub. So that was kind of one of the goals of the funders, was to create a hub, because we've seen success from places like Bitcoin Park that have really pulled in people to create a community. So that's been kind of one of the more interesting things. So Steve Lee and I, before we actually did work out of an office at Block. It's kind of optional to go in, but we just like to go in to collaborate with each other and other people. So the two of us would meet in the office all the time in San Francisco at a Block office, but people would never really reach out to us when they were in town. There was so many people that we didn't really know about that existed. Even the meetups like BitDevs and LitDevs definitely existed. So you would meet people, but now having a space where it's known that there is a physical space in San Francisco, it's been really interesting. So many people have now reached out to us who are either they already live here and we didn't know about them, like Alex, or people coming to visit who I'm sure were visiting all the time and they just didn't know who they were supposed to reach out to, where they were supposed to reach out to, where the events were happening. So there was less of that. So there was kind of less of a community feel, I would say. Maybe there was more with the developers, just because BitDevs and LitDevs already kind of had an existing audience. So that's been really interesting to see that. I mean, I think that there's been a lot of Bitcoiners here already. So now kind of we're all pulling together a bit more. The momentum just feels a lot stronger.
Yeah. And I think, as Haley mentioned, right, Silicon Valley had a pretty strong Bitcoin community when cryptography and what underpins Bitcoin was new, right? Then this kind of industry kind of took that concept or that technology platform and kind of flourished, right? But if you look back to, I'd say maybe pre-pandemic, pre-2020, maybe pre-2018, kind of that cycle, a lot of the Bitcoin companies kind of were here, right? A lot of leading cryptographers are doing research here. A lot of those early companies were based here. Even pre-Bitcoin, a lot of that research was here, right? A lot of those people that were, helped Bitcoin become what it is started here. And I think to your point, right? What happened, right? Silicon Valley is a little bit of a, move fast and break things type of model, right? That's just how kind of VC is in some sense. And that really got kind of Web3-ish at the same time the pandemic happened, and a lot of people kind of left California because they didn't need to be here physically, and it's very, it's one of the more expensive places to live. So you kind of had a multitude of sort of tailwinds kind of taking the industry out of California and out of Silicon Valley, and I think that's ultimately what Presidio Bitcoin wants to be a part of in bringing that back. Is, to your point, Silicon Valley has been this historic engine that has produced so much, technological innovation, incredible companies, incredible, prosperity, if you will, around producing new things. And, we feel, and certainly I feel, and why I was excited about Presidio Bitcoin, one element of that was, okay, how can we bring what I think is the future, which is going to be Bitcoin, the network, the asset, the technology, the whatever, and park that right next to Silicon Valley and try to pull those best things out of Silicon Valley and actually bring that to Bitcoin to help it out, to help accelerate it, to help, build companies that are working into it or integrating Bitcoin into Silicon Valley, going the other direction. So, we're hopefully part of that positive change to bring those two, I guess, forces, if you will, together in a positive way. But you're right. It was sort of this, up and down cycle that Silicon Valley's had. And that's sort of one person's take. I'm not a Californian, or Silicon Valley native, but that's certainly my read on it. And I think the sense that you can get, and I think part of the motivation of, creating this, kind of flag in the ground, so to speak, is, all right, these are two of the best things that we think that's going to happen. And what can we do if we put them together? And well, all right, let's physically put them together and see what happens. And let's start there.
Build with Bitcoin is a proud affiliate partner of River. River is a financial services company that allows you to purchase, sell, and transfer your Bitcoin all through a great suite of products, high security standards, and as of recent, even allowing you to earn a Bitcoin yield on your US dollar cash deposits. For a personalized onboarding experience, go to partner.river.com/buildwithbitcoin.
Well, there's so much I want to drill down on that. But one of the things that just talking about this or pulling on this thread about the Web3 and just the evolution, I think part of the reason that Silicon Valley, especially in the last 20 years, has been such a hub is the investment that goes and supports the tech companies. And it just has really become the place that everybody goes if they want to raise funding and build a team and go through the accelerator programs. And so, that's been part of it. And I think the model of cashing, of being able to exit or have a successful investment in blockchain and related technologies has been through tokenization. That was kind of flipped the VC model. Instead of long-term, investment in a company, it was being able to kind of move that investment or turn it around quickly. And when Israel and I first started this podcast, we were really curious. I mean, former VC, former startup, and former accelerator manager. And so we were like, how do you make money on Bitcoin companies? And that was a question that we had. And then we looked at the funding mismatch between Web3 and crypto companies and Bitcoin companies, which was just like off the charts. Now I think we're starting to see, we have a handful of fantastic VCs. That's why I love seeing Max and I'm a huge fan of the PBJ podcast. I listen to it all the time, but his insights on funding and how profitable technologies can come out of the Bitcoin protocol, I think is super important message for the investors in the area. So this is a really long way of saying, I know that you guys, and I want to drill down into some of the things you're doing with the development community and the builder community, but are you also reaching out to the investor community and educating them on the opportunities for, profitable companies coming out of this space?
Yeah, I'll touch on the VC side, and then I'll pass over to Haley to speak around kind of the builder side and some of the work we're doing there. We're aiming to kind of tackle these types of questions because of just the way that we're positioned. We're not a company per se, but kind of an event space and a community space. So, the first thing we're doing is discussing quantum because that's such a hot topic, right? So how can we get a real pulse on what that means and answer those questions so we can either calm people's concerns or say, oh, we actually need to be concerned. What are the solutions? What do we do? And, we're trying to do that roughly at like a 90 to 120 day sort of clip of, okay, what are these huge pressing issues in the Bitcoin space and how can we help move the needle along by bringing people together, have pragmatic discussions, and to come to realistic conclusions. Then you mentioned, the VC and capital space and kind of touching on our last conversation around, being in Silicon Valley that's, I think, our next summit is going to be around, 2 days roughly structured as, okay, investing in Bitcoin. So there's a lot of, Bitcoin only VCs out there. One of them just raised, announced today that they raised a $100 million fund. How can we make that broader? Or how can we get the Bitcoin person that's at a big fund, not be the crazy person anymore, right? Like they are the partner that's the Bitcoin partner at these generalist funds. And that's a realistic job that exists at every single fund in Silicon Valley. Like we want to do that and we want to be a part of that. But there's very real questions around the disconnect between, why Silicon Valley went so Web3 prior and the way that, Bitcoin sort of is this more slow and steady, more sort of platform, more, whatever it is. So we hope to answer that. We're going to target kind of October, November. One day is discussing around investing in Bitcoin from a VC side. So VCs talking to VCs. I know that's a running joke, but really, why, how, what it looks like, the risks, etc. And then day 2 is going to be basically, here's a bunch of reasons or ways to do it, right? AKA a pitch day, AKA, okay, I want to invest in this space. Here's a bunch of examples. So we have 5 companies that are working out of Presidio Bitcoin that are all, kind of at that seed stage or pre-seed. So I think we have a decent pulse on it. And then, as mentioned, Max is a VC here that works here, and many other friends and VCs have been through the space that, to your point, we agree that it's a challenging sort of question to answer, and maybe not all the incentives are aligned, but I think they could align. So yeah, we're going to try and pull people together to, help that engine or help that I don't know, connection take place, because it's a great time to do it, and it feels like there's a right amount of development and products that are being created, whether it's Bitcoin or Bitcoin adjacent or Nostr or things that are related to many of the people, the ethos that people have in Bitcoin, whether it's decentralization or freedom tech or what have you. Those are very real things that we want to be a part of. But I'll let Haley talk to kind of the builder side of Silicon Valley, not just the VC side.
Yeah, because there is kind of like a 2-part thing. It's like you need money coming in, but you also need builders. And it's like chicken or the egg, like what do you need more of? So definitely we need more funding, but we also need more builders. And something that we've seen a lot of in the Bay Area is there is just general more excitement for Web3 with university students and younger builders. I don't know if that's because of maybe a marketing push. Just earlier today, I went kind of down a rabbit hole of shitcoin marketing, and it's a bit depressing how much money has been poured into certain things. There just generally has been a large amount of marketing done around Web3. I mean, there's a Web3 co-working space across the street that existed first. And so something that I think is happening and that we're working on is getting builders more excited about Bitcoin and kind of the potential to build with Bitcoin. I mean, vibe coding and AI is just a huge one. And we hosted a hackathon. And as a less technical person, it was really exciting to see these projects being presented that were much more digestible and exciting. We can see, a prototype, a physical example, something that people were building that, weren't long-time developers. So I think there's going to be a huge new wave of builders, which will be really good for Bitcoin, especially it is hard to make money off of building a Bitcoin project. It's something I asked too. It's like, how does this company make money? But there are actually a lot of ways that you can make money building with Bitcoin. And there are a lot of but it kind of takes maybe that entrepreneurial mindset too, which there is a lot of in Silicon Valley, where maybe you can be more creative with the way that you kind of add features or kind of subscriptions or different things like that you can add to products. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more building in these types of ways that we're introducing builders to investors will propel a lot of that forward.
Yeah. Haley, we talked a little bit. We connected in Vegas, and you had just completed the hackathon at that time. Can you tell us a little bit about, because I think that's a great idea, and I think it's a great idea to showcase people how flexible the technology is. I think sometimes part of the Web3 bias is this story that's been told that Bitcoin is slow and you can't really build on it, but it has had so many kind of iterations or evolutions in the protocol that there's so much that you can do in Bitcoin on a very stable and secure foundation that it kind of takes that excuse out of the window. But talk to us about the hackathon and how that idea came about. How many people did you have come? What were some of the outcomes of it? Love to hear about the results of that first hackathon that you had.
Alex might have more insight into how the hackathon came about, and I actually don't even remember at this point. Things are moving so quickly.
Yeah, I don't even remember how it came about either. I think it was just an idea that someone had, and we're like, let's do it. And then we did it.
Probably
right?
Steve.
Yeah, probably. It probably was just some pontification at a lunch table, and off we went. I know we were chatting, kind of off camera, if you will, but this idea of the hackathon, it was extremely successful for first and foremost, which means we want to do it again. But, we were chatting earlier in the conversation that, there's all these physical spaces around the globe now. That there's like 6 or 7 in the United States. There's one in Tokyo that was launched, I want to say in March. I just talked to someone that's launching one in London. Mexico City, that we want to, and I've ran this idea past, I want to say like 3 or 4, I guess, of the other sort of space leaders. This is in part of making awesome sort of outcomes of the hackathon, meaning like real companies and get real engineers. But I think it's also a very good like marketing for Bitcoin, meaning that people that are just technically interested will pay attention. And that is just to do a global hackathon with all of the spaces. So if we're sitting here in Presidio Bitcoin, we're having a hackathon and we have 10 teams, and there's people in Denver, and there's people in Austin, and there's people in Nashville, and there's people in New York, and there's a team in Switzerland, there's a team in Tokyo. And it becomes this global phenomenon where that is where all of the talent that is technically inclined is spending their time for a weekend, 3 days. We kind of have to figure out the logistics. It's really just an idea kind of in my head that we've been chatting around with various people since our hackathon in May, really. But I think, we can have an incredible prize pool with that sort of, depth. I think it would make insane headlines. It'll bring, I think, attention to the space in a very positive way, and really get a global sort of interest going where, Bitcoin becomes real. Right? I think the other part of like these physical spaces that's so exciting is, it's not just sitting in your basement. Like I have to go leave my job and talk to no one and just do this stuff and post on GitHub by myself and never see anyone again. Like one of the fantastic things about these physical spaces like Presidio Bitcoin is it's less scary to then say, I work on Bitcoin, or I am building on Bitcoin, or I'm doing something with Bitcoin, because you can surround yourself with people that are doing the exact same thing. So I think this global hackathon is like not only a great way to bring together the physical spaces in a very sort of productive way, but I think it's going to be a fantastic bit of, marketing, if you will, to the world. And it's going to get rid of the narratives of, oh, Bitcoin's for XYZ, or Bitcoin's some nefarious thing or whatever. And it really bring this sort of technology first, innovation first, or forward anyway, idea, and kind of put that at the forefront of people's minds. The stuff that's on CNBC is really, kind of the next treasury company or digital gold, right? Or the asset, the price chart, which is good and fine. But I do think that there is a segment that it would be interested in getting back to the technology part of it. And this just felt like so many wins. And that, again, that's just being kind of one of them.
Love this idea that you're throwing out there, Alex, of getting a few of these hubs to, cooperate in some sort of global hackathon. Because there's no shortage of talent out there, and I think you're spot on that there is some magic to the physical location. I'm extremely excited with what you guys are doing, especially because of the significance and just leadership role that Silicon Valley has, like it or not. I think it's super important. So, it's exciting to hear everything that you guys are working on over there. And, to that point of the importance of these hubs, by the way, Alex and Haley, I wanted to ask, so for other people who might be listening, and, perhaps in your city, you want to get a little more involved, and this is one way to certainly, build community, but it can sometimes be hard. How do you guys, whether it's from a philanthropical approach or from a business model approach, what recommendation would you have for people who might want to get something like this going in their respective communities? How do you measure success? How did you guys at Presidio think about this when you were just kind of brainstorming this?
It's definitely not an easy thing to start, a co-working and event space like we've done, especially in San Francisco. It does involve, funding and effort, but it's doable. And it depends where you live too. San Francisco is expensive, but there's lots of cities that are lower cost to live where it's a bit easier on the grassroots level to kind of start more of a hackerspace type environment. ATL BitLabs is one of them. I just visited there a few weeks ago, and they have a really cool kind of smaller space that, I don't know, maybe like 10 desks or so, but they have a large enough area to host a meetup. And so that's great because it gives like the repetition of the same place where people can go every week, every month or whatever for a meetup, and they know it's where they can meet people. Stephen DeLorme is the one who started that space, and yeah, he did it all kind of grassroots. Denver kind of had an interesting model too, where they had, I think people were kind of contributing funding to an amount to kind of raise money together before the space even started. So there's ways to kind of start a space that's maybe not like Presidio Bitcoin with this like kind of fancy recording studio where we can maybe have a different mission and approach. There's the way of kind of giving a physical location for community can start small, and that's definitely more attainable.
Yeah, and there's stories too of, you know, people that hosted meetups in the back of a pizza shop, and then the pizza shop guy became a, you know, Bitcoiner, and then they hosted it there every week, and then it kind of became a couple desks in the back too, like, you know, pub key, right? It's a bar, right? Like there are ways to, you know, that level of informal to formal it can be very different based on, you know, what are you trying to do? Is it a social thing? Are you trying to host events? Is it a meetup? Is it XYZ? So I think it really depends. But yeah, I agree with everything Haley said. There's certainly no end to creativity other than, you know, I don't think that there's any regret from anyone that's been a part of doing this. If anything, and just speaking from my own experience at Presidio Bitcoin, like it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be fun. So yeah, I encourage everyone to take a bite at the apple because yeah, I do think there's going to be more of these popping up too. Just going to be what level of formality are they going to be in?
And also, this is kind of general advice I give to people who are in the open source world, but like, it's really good to just like write and promote your work generally. Like, you never know who's reading or who's listening. Creating content can feel like you're just shouting into the void. I know you probably feel this as a podcaster too. There's like so many podcasts out there. So you're like, do we really need another Bitcoin podcast? It's like, we really need another like Bitcoin blog post or project popping up, but we do. It's really important. So even just like starting a Substack or Medium and kind of like writing down your ideas, you're in a local city and you want something. I mean, there's someone else could read it who's thinking the same thing. There's also creative ways you can get involved. I mean, we had pretty much 90% of the furniture here donated by Block in San Francisco and Bay Area. There's lots of offices that, you know, have kind of closed down, and there's ways to get, you know, used furniture donations. So there's kind of like creative ways you can do it. But the only way that, you know, people can know that you want to do something is if you write it down or speak about it and someone else can hear it.
Yeah, I love that. And complementing that with something that you said, Alex, is that, you know, there's so much news right now about Bitcoin treasury companies and Bitcoin as the financialization, or I love what Marty Bent says, the Bitcoinization of finance instead of the financialization of Bitcoin. But, you know, the building side of it is so, I find it incredibly exciting when I look forward at what types of technologies the Bitcoin protocol can involve in remaking financial services entirely. And the integration of AI and Bitcoin, which I know is something that you guys focus on a lot. And Max Webster is really, I think, one of the leading minds in that space and thinking about it. And so I'd like you to talk a little bit for those who may not be familiar with what BitDevs is or LitDevs is, and you guys have started a whole new program called Builders. Can you talk about those monthly meetups and how these programs support kind of bringing together people who are more curious about the technology and the creativity inside of the technology than necessarily the price of Bitcoin?
I can talk a little bit about BitDevs, and LitDevs. So yeah, there's different meetups that exist for Bitcoiners. Some of the kind of the ones that have existed for a while that we do have happening in San Francisco, but not specific to San Francisco, are BitDevs that actually started in New York. And now BitDevs occurs in many cities around the world, and they're monthly meetups and they're Socratic seminar style, which that means that there's moderators who lead the discussion, but it's really up to the participants to kind of submit topics that they want to learn more about. It's a way to kind of gather technical minds together to kind of facilitate discussions. And the rules are you can't take pictures, you can't post on social media who said what, but you can talk about something that was discussed. So it really is a safe space to kind of have discussions, especially for developers. It's important because a lot of Bitcoiners and developers especially are very protective of their identity. You know, people are pseudonymous, they don't go by their real name, they don't want to appear on like podcasts and things like that. So having this safe space is nice for them compared to something like a conference. BitDevs is quite technical. Basically, we kind of go over things that are happening in the news, and then people submit different discussion topics such as PRs that they want to review, and it's kind of in the weeds with, Bitcoin development subjects. LitDevs is more specifically related to Lightning. So those are both monthly meetups. And then we just started a new one in San Francisco, which we're encouraging other cities to adopt as well, following the BitDevs and LitDevs model is Builder. So the target audience for that is more product managers, designers, marketers, people who are playing around with vibe coding. I mean, really anyone can be a builder, and that is also Socratic seminar style. So Steve Lee and I moderated the last one. We looked at a bunch of different topics in the news that we found interesting or people submitted to us, and then we really encourage audience participation for that too. So we want to see demos. So it's just kind of a way to have discussions in a space.
Well, plenty of ways to get involved. Any upcoming events that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, sure. We had our quantum event. There's a live stream sort of online of some of the events or some of the topics, rather, I should say. And again, we kind of try to cater a little bit to everyone, back to like, if you're trying to start a space or you're trying to do whatever, like there's a segment group for literally everyone. Bitcoin is for everyone is kind of cheeky, but like, it's very, very true. Bitcoin's for Wall Street. Bitcoin's for builders, as Haley mentioned. Bitcoin's for, developers, BitDevs. We're doing a design week in September where we're bringing, designers from the design community, right? We're talking UI, UX, graphics, right? How do products look? How do they touch and feel? So Bitcoin, I think, is going to permeate deeper and deeper into various places. So, there's no shortage of opportunities for us to have events, because I think the aperture is just growing exponentially. So yeah, as mentioned, the Quam event, we're having a careers in Bitcoin. So we're kind of working on that, which is basically, hey, all right, great. Really cool. I went to the BitDevs, I went to the LitDevs, or I went to the Builder event, or I went to the Design Week. I went to whatever hook got into me around Bitcoin. Okay, great. I'm ready to make the jump. How do I do it? So we're trying to facilitate those conversations, introduce HR people from the different Bitcoin companies, with students, with talent, whatever. So we're trying to do that, sort of in that capacity, as we cater to the various interest groups, right? So I think like Nick Bhatia is coming in August to do like a fireside chat. We're going like bowling. We're renting a boat for like the Bay Area people just to meet and chat. We've had, someone that owns a matcha business who's a Bitcoiner who came to the office, donated us some matcha, and was like, hey, he's going to come serve, he served matcha at our quantum event. I just ordered wine from a Turkovic winery in Winters, California. He's the only Bitcoin winery, so to speak, in the country, or I kind of forget exactly what the claim is. But there's so many avenues in, and we're just trying to touch on all the fun ones that we can and the ones that make sense, because there's so many different ways to get into Bitcoin and certainly stay into Bitcoin. So yeah, it's really, really fun on our end because we get to host really fun and exciting different types of events for various people. But ultimately, being where we are and kind of the mission that we have, that's kind of first and foremost. But it's been, so exciting to do all the fun things that we've been able to do with this space.
One of the other touch points that this brings me back to something, Haley, that you said earlier about university students and getting them more involved in the marketing teams that are on the ground in universities from Web3 and crypto companies. And I know Ella Huff talks about this too. And as she had tried to really was very successful in getting her Bitcoin community together in Cornell and getting that initiative and the Bitcoin student initiative. But are you guys working? I mean, the Bay Area has some of the best, brightest tech students in the universe around. And so how are you guys interacting with the universities in your area, if you are?
Yeah, for the hackathon, we went down to Stanford, we went over to Berkeley and went to the, I think it's blockchain at Berkeley is what that one's called. I forget the Stanford, student organization name, but that's kind of where we saw how real this was, like who their sponsors were. There is no Bitcoin sponsor, right? I think the best you could get is, maybe an exchange or maybe an asset manager that, has an ETF or something. I think that to your point is like, there is no marketing budget for Bitcoin, but we've been trying to engage with them. It was, trying to find those tangible inroads. Like the hackathon was a very real thing. That's a thing that college students do. I never did one, but apparently people finding these things fun. I don't know why. So we tried to make those connections, and then same with the sort of careers in Bitcoin. I've been in touch with the the UC system career office. So there's gonna be undergrads, graduate students as part of that. It's not just sort of throwing it out there. Like we are reaching into those, I guess, talent pools, you could call them, to try and not necessarily compete, but say, hey, look, like these are the things that are available. If you believe in Bitcoin, whatever it might be, however that hook kind of came into your mouth, so to speak, like here's a bunch of options, and we're trying to grow that space by facilitating what we can. So I know you've done sort of various activities to try and get in there in a meaningful way, if that's a good way to describe it. But yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's easy, but could we be doing more? Sure. But yeah.
There's things that we're doing on the Spiral side too, that we're thinking a lot about, kind of Bitcoin marketing, the Bitcoin brand and how it's perceived. Something like the plushie might seem kind of silly, but these things just make the overall brand feel more fun, feel more relatable. Our Here Comes Bitcoin project has a whole library of open source creative assets, which are all these like Bitcoin characters in different forms. They're different, and they're free to use, which is huge. And especially, which I've been discovering with AI, because you can kind of put them into tools and use them as animations. You can put them into products that you're building, and you don't have to ask permission, which is like massive, because if you want to use generally any other, kind of asset that requires like permission, it's like you don't have to. So that's been kind of fun to seeing that. And we're also just generally thinking about ways that we can spread the message of Bitcoin is money. I think, with the crypto casino, Web3, just like kind of shitcoins in general, a lot of people have been burned, or people kind of have this certain impression of crypto, and we do want Bitcoin to kind of stand apart. So just reinforcing that message that Bitcoin is money, it should be used like money, how it can be used in different ways, that it's not just digital gold. So kind of thinking through some fun branding ways that hope specifically appeal to younger audiences too. We have some ideas in Japan actually to kind of relate to kind of the younger audiences there, since they love the mascots so much. So I think I was just looking up kind of existing brand billboards for Bitcoin, and they suck. So we're trying to do some better stuff. So hopefully that helps.
Everything you guys are doing is just, I think, essential to help move this forward and to bring that kind of awareness, right, to the curious minded. So, absolutely love all the efforts that you guys are working on. We need to think through continuing to collaborate in any way we can build with Bitcoin. Lynne, any final comments or questions on your end?
I did, just kind of continuing on what you're asking, Israel, is how can people support you? Do you guys have corporate sponsorships available, or are there individual ways that people can support the efforts that you're putting out there? I mean, how can the community support your community?
Yeah, we've done these summits, right? These sort of larger events that we've taken some sponsorship for, just because they've actually grown kind of beyond what I've budgeted initially. So it's a good problem to have. But that's one way. And then Block has actually done it sort of first, but we've had the benefit of being able to offer free memberships to open source contributors. So it's been a really fun thing for me to be able to hand out. And we've had, people kind of come from around the globe just to be here, whether it's, 1 month to 5 months. And it's really been helpful to say, hey, look, you can be part of this community via the sponsorship, from Block. And it's really helped us be able to attract a really good sort of open source, developers to come and work out of the space. So, those are kind of the only two ways that have historically been to date, but we're certainly open to working with anyone as long as it's going to help advance the space or advance the mission of Presidio Bitcoin.
And then for people in the Bay Area, how do they sign up to be part of BitDevs? I mean, is there a form or a website? I mean, we'll include the websites that we have on our show notes for them, but what is the best way to get involved with you guys as a person in tech in the Bay Area who wants to learn more about Bitcoin?
Yeah. Easiest answer is follow along our social accounts. So on X, YouTube, etc. But, we view ourselves as sort of part of the tapestry of the Bay Area scene, really, or the Bay Area Bitcoin scene. There was already a really strong historic set of meetups that existed, both BitDevs, LitDevs, etc. That we didn't want to disrupt. We wanted to be a part of that. So we post all of our public events on those existing channels that have existed before Presidio Bitcoin, just because we want to be part of that community. We want to support that community and not be anything else but other than being a part of it. So all of our public events are posted on meetup.com called Bay Area Bitcoiners. That's BitDevs, LitDevs, builders, anything else that will be public. If you are building in Bitcoin or in the space or advancing in any way, and you are interested in becoming a member, please reach out to myself or Haley. Come swing by the space. Shoot me a note before, so please. But yeah, we'd love to have you. Be a part of our community. I forget what number exactly where we're at, but we're hoping to kind of fill out towards the end of the year. But we've really fortunately taken a very measured and methodical addition to that. So we didn't really necessarily rush to fill up the space, but have added the right people at the right time that can sort of advance the community and help build it and strengthen it and be a part of it. So if that sounds like a great thing for you or a great fit, we'd love to have you. But please do so relatively soon. I think towards the end of the year we'll probably quote unquote fill up.
Anything else that we haven't asked that you'd like to highlight or share?
I think you got pretty much all of it.
No, I think that's it. Other than you both have a standing invite anytime you're in town. Please do come by. We love visitors. Haley's had many of them on her show. It's wonderful to have a space that we have and how many people we're able to meet and kind of come through and visit us. So we'd love to see you both in person.
Yes, definitely. And we're really excited to see kind of what you all are building too.
Yes, let's definitely collaborate.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on all you've done in such a short amount of time. We think it's a super important bridge to all the tech talent that's in Silicon Valley and to open the eyes up to how much innovation can occur on Bitcoin. And congratulations. And thanks so much for being part of this. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Of course. Thank you.
Appreciate your time as well.
Thanks for listening to the Build with Bitcoin podcast. If you found benefit in what you heard in this episode, we'd truly appreciate it if you would like, share, or leave a comment on whichever platform you're listening, as this helps others find us, which is especially important for a new podcast. And as a reminder, our content is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not to be considered investment advice or a recommendation to invest in any company or asset mentioned in the podcast. Build with Bitcoin is a proud affiliate partner of River, a full-service, 100% reserve custody, Bitcoin-only financial services company. For your next Bitcoin purchase, use our exclusive link, partner.river.com/buildwithbitcoin. Thank you sincerely for being a part of the Build with Bitcoin community.